40% of people who bought from us last year had known about us for more than a year.
Do you find that you're having to do more upper funnel education, awareness?
We try to use our marketing channels to compress that, to speed up the time to purchase. The education that's needed to convince people that age-old, literally like caveman habits of like wiping your butt with like dry paper, which sounds so ridiculous. That's not the optimal way to do it. If you stepped in dog poop, right, and like you try to get a napkin and wipe it off, like wiping will never solve that. You would wash it off. We estimate 6% of bathrooms in the US actually have bidets in them. You compare that to like Japan or Korea and you've got 60 to 70%. It's like the expectation. Waking up and your business cost structure is just like significantly more expensive. Like I think it was like 140% at some point. Until your back's against the wall and you realize like I can do way more. And they're like battle scars that I think have made us more disciplined. One Tushy bidet that we sell at Ryan will sell like 3 more just by delivering you a remarkable life-changing product. 3 million happy customers. It is so rewarding doing work delivering a product that is life-changing.
Our first guest is Jerel Blades, head of growth at Tushy. He's certainly one of the sharpest growth marketers I've come across. I feel very lucky to call my friend and thrilled that he's here today as our first guest on the show. So for anyone who doesn't know, who are you? What are you building?
Yeah, I'm Jerel. I'm the head of growth at Tushy. I've been in the e-commerce space for quite some time, but currently trying to build the future of American toileting. Tushy has existed for nearly 10 years now. I would say for 8 of those 10 years, we've been Tushy, the Bidet Company, and more recently, we have been Tushy, the bathroom wellness company, from gut to butt to bowl and beyond, as we'd like to say.
I love that. So what is it specifically you guys are trying to build in terms of product range? And maybe you can talk a bit more about the bidet and that product category. Yeah,
so our founder story, we have 2 co-founders. I believe one of our founders was actually suffering from IBS or something of that nature and was gifted a bidet for Valentine's Day. And it was like a life-changing experience. The other one of our founders actually traveled to Asia. He had been in Korea and in Japan for quite some time. And obviously, if you've been there and you come back to the US and you try to use the restroom, it feels inferior, to say the least. So they kind of bonded on that mission to deliver that experience to the American and Canadian market, but more recently trying to create a more kind of elevated toileting ecosystem. I think we've actually coined the word toileting. I don't think that's actually a word, but we are trying to create a system that makes going to the bathroom delightful. So what does that mean? We've got a full line of bidets, from affordable attachments that kind of attach to your existing toilet seat. We've got fancy, as some people say, Japanese toilets, or electric bidets that have all the bells and whistles that open up as you walk up to it and, you know, deodorize the bowl and provide a warm seat and give you a warm water wash. And then more recently, we've kind of ventured to in and around the toilet. So we've got toilet sprays, room sprays, and most recently fiber gummies, which has been exciting. So building a really cool system.
I always felt like Tushy was like a true blue ocean brand, building new uncontested market space. You know, I guess the category didn't really exist beyond what you're doing, as far as I'm aware, in the US. And it feels like you're really bringing something, I guess, new to the market. Do you feel that's accurate in terms of blue ocean, and you're building a sort of new category and building something fresh?
Yeah, I mean, so far as like total addressable market, I mean, everyone poops. So we'd like to think that everyone can benefit from, you know, this product. The reality of the situation is, in the US particularly, I think there's only about, as we estimate, 6% of bathrooms in the US actually have bidets in them. You compare that to like a Japan or Korea, and you've got, 60 to 70% of bathrooms. It's like the expectation. The crusade is trying to educate North America specifically on a better way of cleaning your bum. And so it's our job to kind of spearhead that mission, to educate the public, to provide cleaner solutions, for personal hygiene purposes, but also for environmental purposes. Like you use way less toilet paper, if any, by using a bidet, which I think in itself is a great combination of like just better, more thorough cleaning for yourself, but also having a larger impact.
I will come back to that Blue Ocean piece again in terms of the different challenges you have building new market space versus being in an existing market, because I think whilst it's great, there's obviously different challenges that you guys will have trying to educate your market and trying to, I guess, convert someone from relatively low price product to something that's more premium. So I'll come back to that. Rewinding on your career, so you've spent sort of 3.5 years agency side at Maison, you spent 18 months at Goat, now you're obviously nearly 2 years into your head of growth role at Tushy. So you worked both kind of agency side, brand side. You've been exposed to tons of different brands. In your experience, what are the kind of, I guess, 3 key growth levers that you see brands obsess over?
The fundamentals of selling and growing still remain. I like to condense it. There's many different ways of saying it. I like to condense it to, you want to sell to more people, you want to sell more things to those people, and you want to sell to those people more frequently. And what that means is you want to continue to acquire new customers, but you also want to have them feel comfortable stacking their carts and buying more from you. So for us, it's like a bidet and the fiber and the toilet spray. And then you also want to give them a reason to come back. So whether it's repeat purchase through new innovation or subscription-based products that set it and forget it. Like the product is that delightful that you just subscribe and you're just excited to get it every month, I think are still the key principles, I think, that kind of bleed through all the strategies that I'm sure that we'll talk about today. But I think it starts there. And I like to start with those fundamentals and have those type of, levers be like the umbrella to the, systems that we build in any type of e-commerce team that I'm leading.
I love it. I tend to do that myself in terms of, I don't know, it's a really great way, I guess. The rule of 3 is like taking something complex, turning it into sort of 3 key actionable levers. I guess if we take the first one then, so selling to more people, so acquisition. How do you think about channel mix for Tushy, particularly as a sort of Blue Ocean brand, trying to kind of define yourself and build that category? Obviously, no Meta's been pretty critical for you, but how do you think about, I guess, the wider channel spread?
I think the challenge of being a growth marketer, and even like, you described my career, it's the channel mix has been different in every single scenario I've been in. Like I don't have like a prescribed channel mix that's from my brain that's like the Jerel way of doing things. It's really about figuring out like what the brand needs to kind of push education forward, where our customers actually spending their time, as well as like very specific to the project that I'm working on. And so for Tushy, we obviously are on like the key channels, the usual suspects, as I like to call them, the Metas, the Googles, the AppLovins, the Snapchats of the world. But we found that for our category specifically, and the education that's needed to kind of break through culture and really convince people that age-old, literally like caveman habits of like wiping your butt with like dry paper, which sounds so ridiculous, like convincing someone that that's not the optimal way to do it. In order to reach those people, oftentimes it's not like little small screens. It's like really interesting placements where you wouldn't expect it. So one example is we've had a campaign of what we like to call asshole trucks that are all across the country. They've been in LA, in Philadelphia, and in New York City. And yeah, they're just like jarring. Like you may not even realize it's a bidet company at first, but it literally just says like asshole. It's only a naughty word if you wipe. And the context of that is like wiping is so dirty. Like you think about it, and not to go on a tangent, but I have to say it. It's like people have like the bird poop example. If like bird poop fell on your hand, like would you wipe it off? But it's more so like if you stepped in dog poop, right? Everyone probably has had that situation, probably happened to them at least once in their life, right? It's like you try to like rub it off first once you realize whether it's like uncomfortable or that you're smelling it, or like you get into like a car with your friends and everyone's like, what's that smell? And you're like, and like you try to get a napkin and wipe it off, and it just like that smell and that feeling of discomfort and like it getting into the sole of your shoe, it's like so like wiping will never solve that, right? So I like to think of like that analogy of like you would wash it off, like you would get it all in the crevices, right? So it really depends on where you can connect with customers in the most meaningful way, where they least expect it, where you've got their attention outside of like a super small fleeting Facebook ad has been kind of like our mission. So TV, out of home, et cetera, has been huge for us to like make a statement.
Total sense, yeah. And I guess because of the nature of your product, do you find that you're having to do more, upper funnel education, awareness, like to really drive home, what you're just saying, like you're having to really explain it to people and challenge a way of thinking or a way of doing things?
Yeah, for sure. We have a post-purchase survey. If you look at let's just say last year's data, or even all the data we have data that 40% of people who bought from us last year had known about us for more than a year. And this is only new customers. So that immediately tells you that the consideration period is quite long. And it's probably a combination of, do I know enough about this product? Can I install this thing? Which one should I get? What features are most important to me? Price sensitivity, of course. And then like, is this like urgent? Like I kind of feel like this is a thing that's happening, but like, do I need to switch right now? I've been like wiping the toilet paper my whole life. Like, why do I need to change now? So those things typically create longer consideration funnels. And we try to use our marketing channels to compress that, to speed up the time to purchase through education and meeting people in the right places and having remarkable content and great product, of course.
And in terms of those post-purchase surveys, have you found anything particularly interesting in terms of the trigger point for when people are purchasing? Are there any kind of particular things on the user journey or that's really triggering a purchase, or anything interesting you found?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what's most surprising, well, maybe not surprising, but reaffirming to us that we have a remarkable product is that I think it's like 35% of people actually heard about us from a friend.
Wow.
Yeah, what that means is that we've got significant word of mouth. And we actually break it down. So like I think the sum of like someone else is maybe 40%, but it's comprised of like my partner, like my friend, my colleague at work. Like that makes up almost, half of where people hear about the product from, right? When you think about how much all of us, in the e-commerce space invest in ads, right? That is a really remarkable thing. And I think it still is the beauty of like human connection is like you trust your mate, like he tells you like my life has changed when I got a bidet. Like that is more effective than any other marketing. So we like to say that one Tushy bidet that we sell Ryan will sell like 3 more just by delivering you a remarkable life-changing product. Like you will tell other people about it. And I think that's the beautiful thing as well.
Yeah. And we'll come back to, I guess, CRM and retention afterwards. And there's probably lots of questions I have around that because I'm very interested. And we probably haven't talked about that a ton, me and you.
Yeah.
But I guess just kind of leaning into acquisition and kind of going a little bit deeper, has there been like a single creative or messaging shift that's driven like a reduction in CAC or like greater LTV? Has there been like a moment where actually this particular angle or whatever was like a huge lever, a huge unlock for what you were doing?
Yeah, I think we really turned the corner on acquisition on like, Meta specifically when we really leaned into whitelisting. And I know that's like the buzzword of right now, along with like incrementality and a couple other things. But I've been like, I just want to say this on the podcast. I've been whitelisting forever, like since my first job. Like it was so much more difficult to whitelist. Like you'd spin up like old growth hacking marketers would like create pages, like fake people and fake, blog pages and like serve ads. And the hypothesis has always been that people trust people. And I think that's where, again, going back to the theme of the beginning of the conversation is like marketing has gotten so complicated and advanced with attribution and all of that, but like the same principles remain. Like you want to hear from another human being why one product saved their life. You trust that human being probably 10 times more than you trust the brand that's making the product. It's just a complete bias, right? So all is that to say, we find that it's a lot easier for us to get creators to tell their audiences and the masses about their experiences with bidets. When you compare that to us trying to like clinically prescribe exactly all the benefits of a bidet, that it never is more efficient. So that's been like a really great strategy that we've been trying to scale on Meta and even across channels into TikTok shops, et cetera.
Interesting. I mean, I totally agree with you on the human to human thing. I think as an agency, we've thought about this a lot. Obviously, everyone's leaning into AI and the efficiencies, and obviously as a tool, it's a great a great thing. But everything that we see in terms of the data and the creative across all of our clients is that the more human our advertising, the more we show our founders or behind the scenes in the factory, like how it's made, or whether it's creators, whatever it is, like it seems to be, that is always the route that gets the most traction, like regardless of what product you're selling or what brand, who you are. I'm a really big believer that human to human is the way forward. And I think it's like that cycle of innovation. We almost like come right back around in the advertising space, like over engineering, over complicating. And then actually it's just fundamentally psychology and emotion. Like we sell on emotion, we're trying to sell a product, and we're trying to, sell something useful to someone else, and hopefully they find it useful. And I think there's a human element to that. And I think sometimes it's easy to forget when we get lost in all the technical side.
For sure.
But anyway, in terms of advertising, so obviously Andromeda is a big conversation right now, a huge talking point for DT advertisers. What's your take, I guess, on how brands solve that problem?
Yeah, I feel like I'm sticking to like the simplification of marketing, but I think Andromeda, again, exposed that we were getting into times, particularly if for the real ones who've bought media before, when we were stacking 3-4% lookalikes with like different CRM bases and like layering some core audiences in the same campaign and then using ABO to fund them up. Like there's so much less you can do now pushing buttons in Meta. And I think that combined with the iOS 14 privacy update was really jarring for many advertisers, including myself, media buyers. When you think about it, what Andromeda has now done is like we are back to like the markets of like, I don't know, the 1700s. It's like there's no attribution. Like sell me this pen, sell me this route. Like just sell me the product.
Wolf of Wall Street,
convince me that this is as good as you say it is. It's in a strange way gotten us back to thinking about how our products can connect with people in different ways. And so I don't want to drop the buzzword persona because that's probably the third buzzword, incrementality, the other one persona. I've used them already, probably 20 minutes in. But it really is like, I like to say it's like, it's personas, but it's like what emotionally triggers that persona. For us, like just as an example in our category is like, we can be clinical about you feel 2 times fresher by using a bidet when compared to toilet paper, which is true. Like we did a study to validate that and surveyed people, right? But that ad is not going to work as well as, have you been experiencing like dingleberries? Like, have you been walking around and like itching your butt because like you just feel uncomfortable or you're like scooting around in your chair? It's like, the emotional connection to people feeling insecure about those things or feeling like, oh, like there's other people who are also like connecting to a movement and a feeling is going to be way more powerful than like trying to prescribe why someone should buy a product. So I think in a weird way, it's gotten us to think about those personas and the emotional connection to those personas, because that is what Andromeda is looking for. Like what gem sequencing is doing is like figuring out different stories to tell 2 different personas. And you've got to be able to be a true marketer, like a marketer's marketer, and like think about who your customer is, but also where the consumer white spaces are.
Totally agree. And I think if we link it to the previous point on that human to human marketing piece, in my mind, Andromeda is just accelerating human to human marketing, because actually all it's doing is forcing you to think about who is your customer, what do they care about, and then how do we sell to them. It's almost pulled us back to something more basic, which is, I guess, what you touched on. And we do see the same thing, which is, I guess, identifying your personas and obviously using data to really help you inform who your customers are. Because also I think a lot of brands don't really truly understand who their personas are. Like they maybe understand buckets of people, but getting really hyper specific, I think, is really important. And I'm curious how growth programs evolve in terms of building scalability within a segment and within a persona, because it feels like you do have to go hyper niche, but then how do you get scale and volume of creative within that as well, which I guess is really interesting. Your second point, which was around sell more stuff to the people you acquire, product innovation. We've been working together for a couple of years. When we first started working together, you had probably one core SKU, which I think was classic. And now you're like well beyond that. I had a quick look at the website before. You've got quite a few different SKUs. It looks like 9 core SKUs in your bidet range, and then obviously loads of other I guess, upsells and bits and pieces. And obviously launched fiber gummies this week. Congrats. Like, how does product innovation drive growth, and how do you guys see that as a business and as a brand?
Yeah, it's really crucial. And I think it comes back to like your existing customer that you're serving. Also, like, what is that incremental customer you're also trying to serve? And also, like, what's the business need? Like, not to get super financy, but you know, a lot of product innovation is like COGS reduction, trying to get better gross margin so that you can spend more on ads, or so that you can be more profitable. Like, that's the business case. Or launching a subscription product to get monthly recurring revenue that's just hitting your bank account, like increasing cash flow, using that to then fund acquisition. That's like finance speak of like how and why you'd innovate. But on the consumer front, like, you know, listen, our first fiber gummy purchase was from a guy in Alabama. Has not purchased from us since 2021. And that's awesome. And it's probably like there was finally something that he just connected with that was so, he wasn't interested in upgrading his bidet. He liked his own one. We're in the market of durables. So like your bidet shouldn't break like every year, but providing something else that would be delightful to that guy in Alabama is the mission, like is the part of the innovation. And in a way that is almost as incremental as a new customer, because like, who knows, would have that guy come back if we didn't launch that SKU? Like, there's definitely, it wasn't random, right? He came back and he bought that SKU, right, that we launched, right? You know, that's certainly how I think about it. Like, selling more stuff to people is a combination of upgrades. Like, how can you continue to delight your customer, but then also how can you, you know, bundle and create like continuity in your portfolio? Like, you know, despite how random it may sound, fiber gummies is not random. Like, we are in the business of like gut health and bathroom health, and that contributes to a great bathroom experience is if you have regular poops that are, you know, not hopefully from hell and not driving you crazy. It should be normal, regular, comfortable, delightful, and on your way.
So do you, out of interest, have you connected the dots between the Andromeda piece in terms of like finding your personas and finding, you know, your scalable segments that you really want to go after, and then like pairing them to a product they want to buy? And have you thought about how your product innovation relates back to, I guess, driving incremental reach and incremental growth, which is obviously a big topic conversation, but obviously how it then relates back to like a specific segment, and how that product then maybe unlocks a new segment that you couldn't unlock before, or a high value customer, or you know, stuff like that?
Yeah, for sure. Market research and trends does inform also innovation and how we think about personas. We use Amazon market data as a proxy for the market. There's like, you know, tremendous amount of GMV that goes through Amazon, and we're able to lean on our, you know, Amazon reps combined with our own research to understand like the bidet category as a whole is growing. How, at what rate is it growing? What subsections of the category are growing? So like there was a moment in time where we realized that the attachments part of the bidet subcategory was not growing in the way that bidet seats were growing way faster. And so we're innovating to match that, because what does that say about the people? Going back to personas, is like there are people who are looking for this form factor down funnel on Amazon. Like that's what they're looking for, right? And then it's about how do you create, you know, rungs on the ladder so far as pricing, so that you are serving that man or woman who maybe is not willing to spend $500 on all the bells and whistles, but does want to have a really delightful experience, right? Serving that value customer, but then also being able to serve that higher disposable income persona that is down for all the bells and whistles. And so, yeah, more to come. We've got a lot of really interesting innovation, particularly now for homeowners and people who can afford to spend a lot more in bidets. I don't want to say too much, but building really cool stuff so that we can, again, deliver a delightful product that we do believe is life-changing at all income brackets, right? Because we do believe it's something that can be life-changing for everyone.
And do you find that you're always rooting back, or the business is always rooting back to that mission of like elevating toilet experience? Obviously, fiber gummies feels like the periphery of your category in terms of like your focus. Like, how does the business, I guess, root or anchor back its thinking in a mission, and that's how you kind of innovate with product? Or do you think about it more tactically in terms of increasing AOV, LTV, and incremental reach and personas?
I think that it's mission first in creating an ecosystem that is delightful for our customers. Probably the 100th time I've said delightful, because that's really what we are trying to do. Like, we show up to work every day and we smile at the work that we're doing for our customers, who you can read all the reviews. Like, we've got 3 million happy customers. We've got hundreds of thousands of reviews. Like, it is so rewarding doing work, delivering a product that is life-changing for people. So that's like still number one. And like, the reality of the situation is both a business advantage and a mission advantage, is that 6% of bathrooms in America have got bidets. The business side of it is like a byproduct of just having smart operators at the wheel. We've got a really, really sharp team, intentional founders, that we've been around for 10 years. Like, how does the brand evolve? And like, thinking about allowing flexibility for the brand to evolve. You could just be like, this is what we do and we're not changing. But yeah, humans and the environment and nature, and like, I truly believe that the universe is meant to evolve and move forward. And so how do we kind of fit into that? As a very small part of it is just us doing our part to continue to kind of push the boundaries of what we're able to deliver to customers.
Everything you say, it feels like it always comes back to optimizing the experience for the customer, making that as good as it possibly can be, which I think makes a ton of sense. Make a great product and it will kind of sell itself. And has there been like a particular product or SKU? Obviously, you've got a few different things in your roster, but has there been a particular product that's kind of lended itself well to bidet plus X, that has, unlocked that kind of lifetime value or AOV?
I would say we can do a lot better on bidet and something else. Right now, what does work best for us right now is multiple bidets. So like, people who are, particularly in Q4, people are gifting bidets. People who have the, pleasure of experiencing our product oftentimes are the first people, like I said, to sing the praises, go tell everyone about it. So we typically do see these orders that come in where it's like 4 bidets, 5 bidets at once. Like, imagine like, someone wants to be Santa Claus that year and it's just 5 bidets for everyone, right? But that's really like a life-changing gift that you can give someone. So we've seen success with that. We've seen success with 2-packs. So people who, the average American bathroom, I think, has like 2.5 baths, right? Or, toilets rather. So yeah, you get 2 at once, you stock up your whole house, because we like to say, if there's only one, but if you have multiple bathrooms and you have one bathroom that has a bidet, that means every single other bathroom that doesn't have a bidet is immediately inferior. No one wants to use it. So that's typically how we start to see like people buying in bulk.
I'm curious, you mentioned obviously at the beginning, your founder got given a bidet as a Valentine's gift.
Yeah.
How did that happen? How did she get given a bidet for a Valentine's gift?
Yeah, I believe like she was having some stomach issues and was always in the bathroom, and it was uncomfortable. And like, we've all probably been there once where you have to go to the bathroom and you're wiping and wiping and wiping, or you're going back and forth, and it just is an uncomfortable experience. And what, if you have a bidet, it's like a really gentle wash. It's not so abrasive, right? So there are like implications for the skin and also a really sensitive part of your body, right? So yeah, I think that was her turning point. I'm not sure if that was like the impetus in itself. It was a huge part of like that experience of receiving one. Imagine being able to give that to the world, or allow people to give that feeling to other people.
That's very sweet in the context of that situation. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Not like an out of the blue, here's a bidet.
No.
So I guess last question on this kind of lifetime value piece. So what do most D2C brands get wrong about retention that you have had to learn the hard way, like going through, I guess, the past couple of years?
Number one, retention is like an umbrella category, and like repeat is not recurring. It's like way more nuanced than that. We have both repeat business and recurring business, right? You can't treat the two in the same way, and the strategies to market to the two are not the same either. So like we do have repeat purchasers every single month. People who are coming to buy an upgrade on their bidet, a bidet for their country home or their beach house or another bathroom. But it's very hard to predict when that would happen. So they're coming back, but it's like it's hard to forecast that, right? It's not as reliable. And then you've got recurring, which is like subscription revenue. Like every month on the 31st or the 1st, it's like our toilet paper subscriptions hit.
Cha-ching.
And it's like cha-ching, right? Understanding the nuance in like retention as a whole. So, repeat purchase, like even from a unit economics perspective, there are ways you can activate repeat purchases by, marketing to people to get them to upgrade, or serving them ads in custom audiences if you feel like you need to engage them in that way. But when it comes to subscription revenue, right, you're acquiring that person once, and then, you need to be able to keep that person over time. And a lot of the times, obviously, the unit economics for subscription versus, one-time purchase are completely different, right? So I think the biggest mistake I see is like equating both of those things as one, under retention. And then furthermore, if you are a subscription business, not being super locked in on your unit economics and like acquiring a customer massively unprofitably without understanding like a reliable measure of like how long it's going to take for that customer to become profitable. So I've seen a lot of brands prescribe 6 month, 60, 90, 180 day customer lifetime forecast. Like, okay, we can lose money on this customer at this rate because we know that but it's like until you have data like with, significance that a large percentage of people are actually making it that far in their customer lifetime journey, you're going to end up being quite surprised from a profitability standpoint. So it just comes down to like operational discipline. And I think many brands out there have got great operators and know how to do it, but just I've been around the space for some time, and I've seen like a lot of people make mistakes.
Of course. Yeah. Cohort analysis feels like the biggest unlock from like an LTV and economics perspective, and doing that the right way, I think, is obviously really important. A final question that just came to mind is, for D2C brands, they're kind of in that early stage. Maybe they've launched a single SKU, brand, and they've got a single product. When do you start to innovate, and how long do you double down for on a single SKU, I guess, in your mind and in your experience?
It really comes down to like, market size. So, if you're playing in, let's call it like the gummy space and like supplements, right? Let's say even just like fiber supplements for the sake of it, right? The market size is like way larger than actually bidets in itself. Like, believe it or not, we just launched fiber gummies this week, but the market size of fiber gummies is actually way larger than like the entire bidet category in the US, right? So if we started off as a gummies company and we were just focusing on that, we could probably go a long time and just like continue to grow market penetration, get into more households, because there's tremendous demand for it. So we'd probably not really have to innovate for quite some time. Maybe we think about like different flavors or, different bundles of sorts, but we can go with that SKU for quite some time. If you have a smaller market that you're playing in, sometimes strategically, if it's cohesive with your brand, you start to realize that like you may be capping in one market, or it becomes a lot harder to acquire customers in that market just by the nature of the size, and so you're trying to unlock a little bit more like headroom to try to scale in other ways. So you release products strategically for that reason. But the full answer is like the short answer is it's different based on your business. It depends. Yeah.
I think rating it back to your TAM and obviously addressable market, I think seems like the logical way of doing it. And it feels like there must be a way of looking at the number of impressions you have and having a vague understanding of the TAM, and then be able to, I don't know, make a quantitative assessment. But we all know it's, I guess, not that simple. It's much more nuanced than that. Cool. Okay. Well, I think that feels like a very digestible summary in terms of your growth levers for D2C. I think there's some really amazing value in there. So thanks for sharing all of that. I guess I got a couple of extra questions, bonus questions, and these are just things that I guess are top of mind for me at the moment in terms of stuff I'm seeing out in the market. But what role do you think brand plays in performance marketing? It feels like there's, in every brand that I talk to, there's always this tension point between brand teams and performance teams. There's some brands that really feel, the ugly ads, more native, doesn't matter what anything looks like, get it out, volume. And then you've got this other side, which is highly considered, really polished, really focused brand world. And again, I guess this relates back to the product as well. If you have like a super high consideration product, premium, and you're going after like a luxury market, very different to something that's low AOV. But how important, I guess, do you think brand is in performance marketing specifically? And I guess specifically on the metrics that you care about as a growth marketer, which is like CAC to LTV, all that kind of stuff. Like, how do you think that relates to your outcomes as a growth marketer?
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple answers, and they're kind of disparate, but I don't think any of them are like true and the only thing that's true. My original background in marketing was in fashion, and I saw firsthand how much easier it was to acquire customers in such a crowded space, saturated place, when your brand was really strong. I was working on a brand that during the last year where I was running it before I had left that agency had crossed $350 million run rate. And it was the easiest ad account to run.
Really?
And like, I think at the time I was kind of naive and I was like, I'm the best marketer ever. Like this is, I've got all the strategies. But when I reflect on it, I think I was still a great marketer, and like to be able to deploy that level of ad spend to support that sales velocity is difficult. But a lot of it was like the CAC was just so much lower because the brand was so attached to culture. It meant something to people. It was in TV shows. It was in movies. Like people were rapping about it. You can't get that if you don't have a brand. Just full stop. At the same time, I've worked on brands that are just trying to, and I actually say brands, but they're probably not brands, companies rather, that were super successful, did 9 figures of revenue, and exited to private equity. And it's like, you can build something like that and just turn it over pretty quickly. And, you know, there's lots of business examples out there. And it doesn't mean that those businesses aren't successful or that they don't have great operators, but there is a difference in how you're able to deploy ad spend. Another example is like celebrity brands. Like it is just factually true that if I had brand A without a celebrity and I had brand B, and I won't just say any celebrity, but let's say a celebrity that has, you know, alignment with whatever that thing is selling.
Yep.
Brand B almost 100% of the time, well, actually I'll just say 100% of the time will have a lower customer acquisition cost. That is literally the outcome of having a strong brand that's aligned with celebrity brand, et cetera. So brand does give you that lower customer acquisition cost in that scenario too. That being said, I think there's also just like the non-business side of it, which is like, it really depends on if you are trying to build something that's going to stand the test of time. It's like when you think of some of the most remarkable brands that have been around for decades or hundreds of years, like those are true brands that are like household names that like evoke a certain feeling when I say something. If I said like the brand Coca-Cola to you, like you can almost taste it, like you can feel it, you know. You think about going to the movies, like, so I do believe that it is really fun to engage with products that are more meaningful and attached to culture in that way. But I would say that the challenge of performance marketing and brand is like, you know, well talked about. I think that there is a balance. I think that in the performance marketing sense, there needs to be flexibility. And particularly in the e-commerce space, like just, I won't make a blanket statement, but I think that brand is really your unboxing and your ability to deliver a really great product. It's really like the feeling people have once they get your product, I think is brand. I think it's, what does it make them feel when they open it? Do they feel that moment? And then is that something that they're proud to tell people about or to keep in their home or to display in their home or to continue to order month after month after month? And that comes with delivering a great product, having great messaging, connecting with people in the right ways. All those things are super important in that. I kind of bounce around, but I think it's important to have both, but there's so many different scenarios to think about.
Yeah, it's nuanced. Yeah, we definitely see that tension point a lot between brand marketers and performance marketers. I guess brand performance is like a term that we've started to, you know, use quite a lot with our clients. And I think brand is definitely a differentiator, but it's, I think, most important for brands that have a higher AOV product. Like when you're really trying to get that consideration phase or process as short as you possibly can, it feels like you need to really build credibility. So I guess I see it as like a lever in performance marketing. And I think if you overlook it, it's also not good, but equally you want to balance and you want to find that line between being able to be really tactical and, you know, jump on some of these trends like the authentic, like even post-it note style ads, for example, on Meta. You don't want to be restricted on those things if you're, you know, you're brand prohibitive. So yeah, I think we see it as well. It's finding that balance, I think, is important, but I guess it does relate back to the type of product.
For sure.
Tushy, luxury product, is a nice to have, not a necessity. In periods where customer spending is pulling back and these kind of purchases are kind of out of the question, how do you think about adapting your growth program to kind of, I guess, compensate or facilitate?
If your brand is connected to culture and it's meaningful enough, people, no matter if it's a recession or a bull economy, will always want those types of product. And so for us, it's really we know that, like, there's probably not much we can say as Tushy to convince you right now that you need to stop everything you're doing to get a bidet. But we do know that if we can create a movement of real human beings, and that's not just paid media, that's like organically in the creator rosters we're building and the communities that we're looking to connect with. The minute that people feel like they're behind the beat, that this is happening one way or the other and they are behind, is what's actually going to drive them to action, no matter what the economy is or how they're, clean. So, I think about these really great, examples, and it's like, Caraway did a great job at this like a couple years back, or maybe was it last year? I don't know, time is flying. But cookware is like a commodity. Like, you can get it anywhere. You can walk into a Target and get cookware. You can buy it online. And Caraway really did this amazing campaign where they were like, we have been cooking with microplastics in our food, like PFAs. These pans are poisoning us. Like, this is the new way to cook. Like, this is clean cooking, right? There was a moment where that messaging was going through paid ads, was going through organic channels, was getting PR, like media placements, like, starting to rank in articles, was like entering American discourse and like news, daytime television. And it just felt like there was something happening. It felt like a movement. And it's like, like, I never thought to change my pants. I was like, nope, like, I'm not going to be the guy that dies from Teflon poisoning or something like that because my pans aren't upgraded. Like, it wasn't like any advertising of them telling me, like, that they had the best pots and pans in America. It was really like this feeling that like culture was moving and I was static. And I think that will be relevant to us, is like the minute we can make it feel like, because it is happening, but make it more known that culture is moving in this way, all the benefits that people are able to enjoy and that people are behind and archaic in their ways of cleaning in the bathroom. I think that's what will drive people to action.
Yeah, and I guess that relates back to brand as well, investing in that kind of activity, because in theory, you're building, I don't know, buy-in and awareness and all this kind of stuff, and it could, come back further down the line in those moments where, the economy isn't sort of supporting a purchase right now, or people are feeling,
for sure,
that the belts are a little bit tighter and that kind of thing. Obviously, we talked a lot about growth levers and we talked a lot about building Tushy. I guess what I also want to focus on is a moment that it wasn't so easy and it wasn't all sort of sunshine and roses. For you guys, a moment that comes to mind for me in terms of, obviously, over the past couple of years is this kind of tariffs thing that happened last year, which felt like a big moment for you in terms of impact on your business and how you do things. Yeah, could you talk about that experience? What happened? How did it impact the business? How did you adapt?
Without getting like super into the weeds, it's just, a crazy thing, waking up and your business cost structure is just like significantly more expensive. Like, I think it was like 140% at some point in some of our lines. Yeah, it's like a nightmare just reflecting on it, like reflecting back on it. I'll cut to the good part of it, is that I think it made our business way more resilient. I think it made me a better operator. I think it made our founders better operators, our finance leader better operators. Like, the whole team had to think like a entrepreneur, like a business owner, like, what can I cut? What do I need? Which I think reintroduced some discipline that probably should have been there anyways, is like, take what, and that's like a world lesson, by the way, like, take only what you need, right? And move on, right? So, I think there was a level of resilience, but I think that all of us got better at our jobs, even as marketers, like seeing your margin just erode, your gross margin erode. It's like, now it's like you got to like acquire customers like way more effectively. They're just less margin to play with. You got less marketing spend you can spend against that to be profitable. And what happened after that mid-year panic and like, threatening to our cost structure led to an amazing Q4. New product launches on Amazon and on Shopify, doing the asshole trucks, like getting creative about how we can arbitrage CPMs, get eyeballs in cheaper ways, daytime television, getting really cool placements in articles, getting creative about AEO, GEO, like how do we show up in ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, like that really didn't really cost ad spend at the time. It's like, how do you produce content both on YouTube and on blogs to show up in really meaningful ways for really intentional customers? So in a strange way, I would say like that forced us to get super creative about our business, to like realize how much we could do together as a team. And it's like, you may think you're able to do this much until your back's against the wall and you realize like I can do way more, you know, when I'm in a bind. So I think those things help us grow, and they're like battle scars that I think have made us more disciplined in our approach to marketing, to running a business, to scaling the business, to forecasting the business, to buying inventory, down every single line item of the P&L, like just getting better at it, which is an awesome thing to say after the fact. But in the moment, obviously, shit hit the fan.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can't imagine how difficult that was. And, you know, as a founder, obviously, I can't imagine how your baby being in that moment, as well as, you know, a founder of Tushy, must have been crazy for your founders.
Yeah.
Okay, so it feels like it was a catalyst for innovation. Out of interest, you know, obviously fiber gummies just launched. Was that like a specific, can you like draw a line to tariffs and that being a, you know, something that's come to fruition?
Well, I mean, our gummies are made in the USA, so that's start.
Okay, yeah.
Which it wasn't a direct line. Like we always knew, we've always been on the forefront of gut health and gut research. We have the fiber gummies, but we also soft launched an app called Hindsight by Tushy, and it's a stool tracking app. And so it's really just to get people familiar with like tracking their regularity, how they're going to the bathroom. And then there's like an artificial intelligence component as well, if you take a picture of it.
Oh, that's so cool. I didn't know you did that.
So yeah, you know, we have always been curious about gut health. So it wasn't a response to that, but certainly made us, I think it just accelerated our appetite to continue to evolve the business, and so that it withstands the tests of time and any challenge that comes with us during like super uncertain times, right?
Yeah, it does feel like obviously in that moment having the portfolio of products really helps you, because you can maybe start to pivot to different things, maybe some, I don't know, different margin products with different margin or different unit economics, and you know, I can imagine that's really helped you. So what's next in terms of Tushy? What's coming up? Like, what does the next 12 months look like? What are you focused on, I guess, as a brand, and what are you focused on as, you know, the head of growth?
Yeah, as the head of growth, I'm focused on growing the business. Drum roll, growing the business. But, you know, doing it intentionally, doing it profitably, doing it with a long-term view and not what can I do in 1 year from now, but it's like, what are we building over the course of time? We have 10 product launches in 2026. It's probably the most we've had in one calendar year. We've got a 3-year product mode roadmap all the way to 2028 that is incredible, to say the least. Like, we will continue to keep people on the edge of their seats so far as like how and what we're innovating on will continue to take over the bathroom and the gut health space. And yeah, we are looking to be the company that, you know, the Buzz Lightyear line is, you know, from gut to butt to bowl and beyond is what we're trying to do. That's our mission as a company. So yeah, looking to use those product launches as a vehicle to grow the business and to meet net new customers in ways that we weren't able to reach them before, but to also to unlock new channels. Like, we're curious about TikTok shops, and we know that ecosystem is like the modern day QVC. And it's like, what do we need to create and innovate for a sales channel that is just so glaringly like what Facebook was, you know, way back when it was like what transitioned from right column to like all the placements. It was like, you see everyone starting to scale and you're like, okay, there's something here. You start to see culture change and how people are shopping. There's that. We're also leaning into agentic commerce. You know, who knows what shopping looks like in 6 months? We don't want to be behind for that. So how do we continue to index and build our business for how shopping may evolve in as soon as, you know, half a calendar year? We're building a new website. We're elevating the brand, creating a toileting ecosystem that is more friendly to all the products that we're innovating on. And yeah, I can go on and on. Like, it just shows you how exciting the next year is for us and beyond. Is there's a lot that we're trying to do to kind of expand our portfolio, sell to more people, continue to create delightful experiences, and to connect to culture in really meaningful ways.
Beautiful. Excited to see what you guys do. It's it's an awesome brand, and obviously your products are fantastic as well. So I'm curious to see how you continue to evolve in terms of the portfolio. So for anyone listening, obviously hopefully they've found a lot of value in terms of everything you've said. You've had some real golden nuggets in there. I guess in terms of summing it up into one thing. Maybe this is someone, early on in their growth marketing career, they're kind of wanting to get into this space. That maybe they want to be head of growth or a CMO at some point. What's one thing now after all of the experience you've gathered over the past 7 years that maybe if you'd known, let's say 5 or 7 years ago when you first started, would have made you like a disproportionately better growth marketer from day one?
To not get shiny tool syndrome, in the sense that our industry is on the forefront of innovation all the time. There's always new partners to work with and new tools to use to make your marketing more efficient or to measure things more accurately. Like there's a bunch of like software out there. The advice is not to kind of feed into all those cycles of like what is everyone else using. Yes, it's important to know that, but never to feel like you're behind because you don't have XYZ software, etc. Because going back full circle to the beginning of the conversation, if you get the core tenets of what it means to market to someone or the masses, if you truly understand that, you will be way better poised than kind of being whack-a-mole in a system of everyone telling everyone what to use and how to market and what strategies to use. So I would say definitely make sure that the ear is up to what's going on in the space, because this is a really awesome space where people share great strategies, people help each other for free, people do things like this to talk about shop, to talk about failures and challenges, hopefully to other people's benefit. So not to say to disregard that, obviously, but to just remember that at the end of the day, it's like you're selling products to people and you've got to convince them that it's meaningful, that it's gonna change their life. And it's like, even if it's a pen, like I said, full circle, tell me why this pen is going to change my life.
I love it.
I think and that will breed creative juices, will get you thinking about how to connect with people in different ways. Think about where to connect with them, to identify consumers maybe that you're not reaching for XYZ reasons. So yeah, just getting back to basics, I think, which is hard at a time where AI and all these things are happening, right? So just to stay focused on those fundamentals.
That's pretty much all I have in terms of questions. So yeah, thank you obviously so much for being the first guest on the podcast. It's a real privilege. I have absolute conviction that in whatever you do in the future, hopefully, obviously, you continue to grow Tushy, and I'm excited to see what you do with that brand. But you're going to be growing businesses probably for many years to come, I suspect. This is your lifeblood. So I'd encourage, obviously, anyone listening to go connect with Jerel, reach out to him. Obviously, if you have any questions, here's your guy. I learn a lot from you. And so, yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it.